Welcome back to Newsroom Weekly Review. I'm Chella Smith. I'm bringing you the latest on reforms and economics, your Middle East, U.S. entertainment news here on YouTube. Looking in on what's going on in the Middle East, Baghdad Mwanzi News reports the head of the Tandem Alliance, Mohammed al-Habassi, discussed on Friday with the delegations of the Kyrgyzstan Democratic Party visions regarding understanding and political dialogue for the next stage. A statement by al-Habassi's office said Friday a delegation of the Kyrgyzstan Democratic Party headed by Hauser Zembari, and during the meeting they discussed developments in the country and exchanged visions of the result of the parliamentary elections, understanding political dialogues for the next stage. Shafak News reported the Independent High Electoral Commissions announced on Saturday the completion of counting and sorting of stations, for which evidence was presented within the appeals appendix of the candidates of Dakar, Kirkuk, Chella, Aden, and Nineveh, in the presence of representatives of the contesting candidates, the international observers, and authorized media personnel. The commission said in a statement received by Shafak News Agency that the results of auditing these evidence will be submitted to the Board of Commissioners to take appropriate recommendations in light of the procedures followed. According to the statement, Sunday will be the last day of appeals filed, will witnesses the consideration of the stations for the evidence was presented within the appeals appendix of Basra government's candidates to resolve their appeals filed in full after completing the review and scrutiny of what the candidates submitted in the aforementioned appendix. Baghdad, November 7th, according to the BNA, a drone landed with explosives targeting the home of Iraqi Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kazemi in Baghdad early Sunday, in what the army of Iraq describes it as an assassination attempt, but said that al-Kazemi had escaped unhurt. An Iraqi army statement said that the attack targeted al-Kazemi's house in the Green Zone in Baghdad. He did not go into more details. Two government officials said that al-Kazemi's house was subjected to at least one explosion and confirmed that the prime minister was fine. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack so far. Western diplomats present in Green Zone, which houses government buildings and foreign embassy, said that they heard the explosion and gunfire in the area. In recent weeks, supporters of Iran-aligned armed groups have staged demonstrations near the Green Zone to protest the results of the last month's general elections, which were a blow to their influence in parliament. Shafak News Prime Minister al-Kazemi calls on Sunday for calm and restraint after an attempt to assassinate him during the bombing of the residence of fortified Green Zone in Baghdad. Al-Kazemi said in a tweet to him, "I was and still is a redemption project for Iraq and the people of Iraq. The missiles of treachery will not discourage the believers, and a hair will not be shaken in stability and insistence of our heroic security forces to preserve the people's security, achieve the right, and put the law in place." He added, "I am fine, thank God, among my people, and I call for calm and restraint from everyone for the sake of Iraq." On Sunday, a security source reported that 3 members of Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kazemi's protection were wounded during the bombing that targeted his house in Green Zone. The sources told Shafak News Agency that according to parliamentary information, al-Kazemi was not injured. The security media cell had reported that Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kazemi had been subjected to a failed assassination attempt. In a statement, that cell stated that the assassination attempt was carried out by a booby-trapped drone that tried to target the residents in Green Zone in Baghdad. She added that the security forces are taking the necessary measures in connection with the failed attempts. Later that day, Baghdad Mwanzi News reported the U.S. State Department condemned the attempt assassination of Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kazemi, and the U.S. State Department said in a statement, which was seen by Mwanzi News, that the attempt to assassinate Iraqi Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kazemi is a terrorist act. She added, "We strongly condemned this clear terrorist act that was direct at the heart of the Iraqi state, stressing we are relieved that the Iraqi Prime Minister was not harmed." Shafak News, the commander of the Quds Force and Iranian Revolutionary Guards, Ismail Qaani, arrived on Monday in Iraq's capital, Baghdad, on an unannounced visit. The governor source told Shafak News agency that upon his arrival after midnight, Qaani held a meeting with the leaders of the Shiite faction without giving further details. The visit came after the Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kazemi announced this survived an assassination attempt after his house was bombed by drones, while the security authorities explained that they were able to shoot down 2 of the 3 drones that targeted the Prime Minister's home in the fortified Green Zone in the center of capital Baghdad. Many countries and international bodies condemned this attempt, and the Iraqi security and military forces entered a state of high alert after the assassination attempt was announced, and more special forces were deployed to the vicinity of the Green Zone and the surrounding neighborhoods. Baghdad Obelisk. The writer David Ignatius said in an opinion article published by the American newspaper The Washington Post on November 8, 2021, that the last attempt to assassinate Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kazemi shocked the Iraqis, and its purpose was to undermine his role in running the country. The writer said that the attack was described as cowardly by al-Kazemi himself and was condemned by the United Nations, the Biden administration, and the wide range of Iraqi politicians, Iran, and countries. The writer said, "I met al-Kazemi in a small villa decorated with modern art only a few months ago, and it is the same one that was bombed." The writer considered that the attack was counterproductive, and its goal was to deprive Prime Minister al-Kazemi of a second term. But its outcome came in an opposite way, as it made his second term in office almost certain. The writer saw that al-Kazemi has been living in the crossfire since he took office in May 2020 and tried to direct a path between the United States and Iran. The writer revealed that al-Kazemi was about to start talks about forming a new government with outsiders and other prominent politicians. Shafak News, the independent high electoral commissions in Iraq revealed Wednesday the date for referring all appeals regarding the results of the early parliamentary elections to the judiciary. An official source of the commission told Shafak News agency that the electoral commission will send on Thursday all and the last appeals it has to the judiciary authority for the purpose of resolving them, noting that whatever decision is issued by the judiciary authority will be binding on us and the parties submitting the appeals. He added that the judiciary may include a decision to reopen some stations and recount operations and manual sorting, noting that this matter is up to it. The source stressed that the need for everyone to abide by what will be issued by the authority, explaining that the judicial authority has 10 days to resolve the appeals and submit the final decisions regarding them. Baghdad Today, the economic expert Durham Mohammed confirmed Wednesday that the Iraqi government can return the price of the dollar to the old price to address the rise in prices in the market. Mohammed said in a statement to Baghdad Today that the government is able to restore the price of the dollar provided that there is direct control by the central bank of sales operations, and it increases the dollar sales outlets in the local markets and directly to the citizens and not through the banks that monopolize the dollar and create a market for it. It also controls its price in the market. He added, increasing the price of the dollar is an improvisational decision by some political blocs and the Ministry of Finance, who did not rely on the rising it gradually, but rather in a sudden manner, as it led to a rise in inflation and increasing in its poverty rates in the country. Mohammed added, the current financial minister bears the responsibility for raising the price of the dollar and its negative consequences for the economy, as he has not achieved any economic development goals for the country at all. Economy News also reports Baghdad yesterday. The Central Bank of Iraq warned against dealing in encrypted digital currencies, indicating that it has not been granted any license to deal with them. And his media office has said in a statement received by Iqtisad News that the Central Bank of Iraq is closely following transactions in the digital, encrypted, and virtual currency markets, given the risk associated with these currencies and their failure to be subject to any legal or regulatory or technical controls of the legislation in Iraq. He added, in order to avoid any negative repercussions resulting from dealing with these currencies, which have high volatility and speculations in them, that the Central Bank of Iraq warns against using them and does not guarantee such currency and does not provide legal protection for those who deal in them and has not guaranteed a license to any digital currency currently encrypted. Recently, and phenomenon of digital currencies and trading in them has spread in a large area of the world and some areas of Iraq, especially the western ones, which is a new and strange phenomenon for the Iraqis. Baghdad Mawazin News. The Luke Oil Company operating in Iraq announced yesterday the discovery of Arido fields with a reserve of 7 billion barrels. The head of the company, Vajid Alekperov, said in a press conference held on the occasion of the arrival of productions of the West Kurna 2 fields to 1 billion barrels that today is an important day for us after we reach the production of 1 billion barrels of oil, noting that over the past years we have felt support from Iraqi government. He added the 10th block is the second project after our success in Kurna 2, noting that we discovered the Arido fields, which has a reserve of 7 billion barrels. He stressed we are essential partners for the Ministry of Oil and the national oil companies, and we always cooperate, pointing out that all difficulties are overcome in control cooperation with the Ministry of Oil. Shafak News. The head of Iraqi Supreme Judicial Council, Fiq Zaydan, responded Thursday to the news of the candidacy for prime minister in the expected Iraqi government, while noting that the falsification of results of the recent parliamentary elections has not been proven so far. Zaydan said in a statement reported by official media that the election fraud has not been proven so far with reliable legal evidence. He added that the investigation into the murders of the demonstrators who reject the election results in the vicinity of the Green Zone last Friday is continuing, pending the completion of the investigation committee set up by the Prime Minister to present it to the judicial body. He explained that the investigation filed of the attempted assassination of the Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kazemi is what the committee formed by the Prime Minister and has yet been presented to the judiciary, noting that it is still in early stages. Regarding the talk about putting his name up as a candidate to head the new government, Judge Zaydan said that he refuses on more than one occasion to take any position outside the judicial work. And last, Baghdad People's Report legal expert Tariq Herb said that those who object to the election results do not exceed 2% of the political scene, stressing that there is currently no legal way to repeat the elections. Herb says in an interview with his colleagues Ahmad Al-Tib, followed by Naz, that the elections will not be repeated unless decisions is issued by the new parliament after its meeting, that the new parliament dissolves itself and holds early elections. And this is unlikely option because the next parliament will not take a step of this kind based to the objections of a few people who represent no more than 2% of the political scene. Herb questioned the figures announced by the Shiites Coordination Framework, which talks about reaching 90 seats, asking, who are these and what are these names? He suggested that the Shadarist bloc will be able to form a national majority that include the highest winners from the Kurdish, Shiite, and Sunni components. A member of the political bureau of the Asab al-Haq movement of Saad al-Sadi said in an interview with the colleague Leith al-Zawari, followed by Naz, that the re-election is one of the biggest democratic manifestations and one of the factors that instill confidence between the people and authorities. He added, if fraud is proven, there will be no objections to the re-election, and we have evidence, which we may present to public opinion if we reach a dead end that will lead to the re-election. And he stated, "We have no problem with the tour conducted by Mr. Muqtada al-Sadr's with the political bloc, but in a coordination framework, we said that we will not conduct any negotiations before deciding on the appeals. And the Kurds and Sunnis share the same concerns with us, and they also have evidence. In addition to, they told us unexplicitly that they will not ally themselves with any Shiite party without the other before the consensus within the Shiite house." He continued, "We do not have a complex about the formation of the Satirist bloc's next government, and we have suggested that we may boycott the political process if the political process is not corrected, or if we oppose, but we will not obstruct the work of the next government according to the formula, play or sabotage the stadium," adding that we must pay the price for our embrace of the popular mobilization and resistant faction. In response to the fact that the poor coordination between the alliances caused the Al-Fatah's alliance to lose, he also considered the Al-Fatah's alliance obtaining 16 seats as an indication of fraud, stressing that he would have accepted the results if he had given Al-Fatah's 35 seats or more, because these results may actually indicate poor coordination. And we could have had one more than 40 seats if we coordinate the nominees of candidates in the constituencies regarding the features of the next government. Khazali said the current situation is not suitable for forming a national majority government, and this will lead us to instability because the losing party has evidence that the elections are a failure and fraud, and it will not be possible to talk about the rude satirist candidates or a rude farmer, etc., but rather Asma can put forward in this context of a political maneuver. He added, if the leader of the satirist movement, Muqtada al-Sadr's, can form a majority government, we will have no objections. If the satirist movement and the reference assessments say that the country's situation is tolerable, then let them form a majority government. But the Kurds, Sunnis, and the religious reference are convinced that the country's situation cannot pass in order to affect the results of these elections. He continued, the issue of the candidacy of the brothers in the current Satir's car is a political maneuver, and do not think that they have any political decision to adopt this option to the end. As for the owners of Ka, al-Maliki said that he rejects this. Khazali said in a press statement November 4th, 2021, that there is no server in the Emirates, and this problem has overcome, and the servers has been transferred to the commissions in Baghdad. But there is a Frick calculator responsible for displaying the results, which is not checked by German companies. Flick's calculator is known to the commissions as its Frick's identity. He added, we said earlier within the coordination framework that the elections in this way are fraudulent, and we will not participate in them, and our conviction is to adopt manual counting and sorting. But a session took place in the presence of 3 presidencies and judicial councils and the chairman of the commissions, and the problems were raised, and the head of the commissions pled that the elections are safe and cannot be rigged, and that he is ready to dispel fear by giving a tape from each box to each candidate before connecting it to the internet and sending the results, and choosing a random box for manual counting and sorting, and for the commission to hand over a copy of each box for all the ballot papers that they entered within the 72 hours. But what happened is none of these decisions have been implemented. Al-Kazemi threatened to resort to Security Council to challenge the election results, describing the Security Council blessings of the Iraqi elections as a stigma in the council's history. He also said that by choice of boycotting the political process and our deputies refraining from taking the oath or not participating in the next government and turning to the opposition and possibilities. That was a long reading. That's all she wrote for this week's Newsroom Weekly Review, your Middle East U.S. entertainment news on reforms and economics. I try to bring you all the Iraqi news without having to keep up with all the different outlets. I'm Chella Smith. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you like my content, give me a thumbs up. I will see you all next Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific here on YouTube for your next Newsroom updates. Again, a shout out to Currencies 365 for all his continued support. If you'd like to learn more about stocks and cryptos, I highly recommend joining him and his crew for the most recent updates. You can find him on YouTube or Patreon. Thank you everyone again for watching. I'm super excited to be back. Have a great weekend and take care. Make sure you join us Fridays, 4 p.m. with Newsroom Updates with Chella Smith, Entertainment News. And don't forget us on Sundays for What's Cooking in the Kitchen. You can also find us behind the scenes 24/7 on Snapchat.